What up?
Let's go.
Let me just get your face maximized here. Sweet. There we go.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Man, it's been all of 30 seconds since we
I know I was starting to have attachment issues, but you know, it's all good.
Right. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, man. I mean, and I know we just came from a run this morning, which was awesome. First 10K run for you in a while. So
yeah, actually.
Yeah. How'd that go for you?
I mean, based on what I got for time, according to like your estimates,
right?
I'm pretty good for somebody as short as I am and has consistently slow pace as I have. Like an hour and a couple minutes over, still pretty damn good.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, yeah.
And the only time I stopped was when I realized that I wasn't on the right path that you were. So, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm just proud that I've convinced you finally, because I remember the first few times I asked you to come running, you were like, it's a little early. It's a little early.
and you know what? It's all these interactions that kind of made me go, okay, quit making up excuses. That's an excuse. You could have easily. I even tried to almost get weasel my way out of the run this morning because I was like, oh well, you know, it's icy, and I tried walking last night and it's icy. I'm like, no. You can't do that. Like, you know, you were like talking all this big game last week about going for a run, and you can't weasel your way out of it now. But you know, I'm glad we went. I feel great. My legs don't feel great, but I feel great.
Yeah, no kidding. And speaking of that, like, I'm super curious. Like, in those situations, do you want me to push, or you want me to be like more like human? Like, I don't know, because like my instinct is like, well, the way I've been brought up with, you know, having the heritage that I do, it's been like, hey, you're just being a little wimp, like, get your stuff together and get out there kind of thing. But I've realized that doesn't always work with people. So
you know what, I feel like, you know, strangely, I have enough of a FOMO, or like fear of missing out, that seeing somebody go and get it makes me want to go and get it. You know what I mean? And I've been around you enough to feel like if I start trying to back out of something, then you're gonna go and get it anyway. I'm like, nah, I want to be there when you go and get it too, kind of thing. So and that's the thing, like, you know, I saw you running like super far ahead of me because, you know, you got a better pace than I do, and it didn't bother me. I'm just like, you know what, I'm gonna see you at the finish line. My goal is not to make you wait that long for me when you're done. You know, and even after that, I was still very happy with my time. And for anybody that doesn't know, like, you know, I'm a former smoker. Like marathon running is like my main form of physical activity, to be fairly honest with you, and all that stuff. And the fact that I can pull out 10K on a random day, you know, I felt pretty good about, like, to be fairly honest with you. So
yeah, and I mean, this is like the second time you run in what, like a year?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, like, let's not borrow the biking I did all in summer, but that doesn't really count.
Well, I mean, it's some form of physical activity, but
yeah, I guess so.
I think it's just touching back on the point that you're like the fear of missing out. I think that's like kind of an interesting way of like accountability. If you know what I mean, because I think that one of the things, like, in content creation in the world of like landscape photography, or all the photographers that I've gotten to know, it's like not a fear of missing out, but it's like, who's got the next big thing, and like everyone's just grinding to do the next big thing. And I found that just gets to my head, and it literally just gets me into like a negative position in my head. And it's no longer because I want to do it. It's more, you know, because like, oh, I feel like I gotta do something because these people are doing something, you know? So I don't know, there's a little bit of a tricky part to that.
You know, I can definitely like attest to that. Like, cause, you know, I feel like, even before I really got involved in like the music scene, all that kind of stuff, you know, FOMO was always a thing that I had, because, you know, I don't know, I could go back into the past and be like, oh, I wasn't a popular kid, so there's always like, you know, kids doing stuff, and I was always jealous of that. But it's even just the fact that, like, you know, you could be missing out on an opportunity, you could be missing out on this and this and that, a new experience, that sort of thing. And it gets a little more intense. Well, it can go two ways, I feel like, if you are creative. It can either be like, it can either be the thing that like becomes like the bane of your existence, because it's like, okay, well, I gotta go out and see this new event, I gotta go and see this new place, I gotta see this new venue, this place is super Instagrammable, I gotta, like, you know, make sure I get the shots before anybody else, kind of thing. Or it'll make you be like, or, you know, you can also be in the mindset where it's just like, okay, everybody's on this wave, screw that, I'm gonna start the wave. You know what I mean? And I've kind of gone between the two mindsets, where I'm just like, oh, I want to go see this new thing, go to this event, and then sometimes I'll just shut in and be like, no, you know what, I want to work on me, and I want to, like, you know, I want to be the wave, I want to start my own wave, you know?
Yeah, no, and it's hard because, like, nowadays it is like there is so much that is done on that, like, especially in the landscape photography. It's like when someone finds like the new island in the Philippines, or that new spot, that new area, or that new landscape, you know, like right away you see like 20 other photographers head there right away. Obviously not right now, but that's how it was. And it's like, because like you want to be the first one to get that spot, to get that shot, sure. Because there's so much. Yeah, there's just you get so much more traction because people are like, oh, that shot, you know. And
right.
When they haven't seen that, when you see like the same picture of, you know, the Manhattan Bridge, when you see the same picture of, you know, like for Winnipeg, it would be like when you see the same picture of Pinawan, and when you say, you know, people get used to it, they know that place, they don't need that shot. But then like when something else new pops up, like a new restaurant, like, you know, that, oh, they've been to that bubble tea place, you know, personally having been around a lot of Filipinos, I feel like that's really a thing. And
yep.
And there's a, like, both sides to that. There's obviously like you want to try it out, just to go try it out, but I've definitely been around people that, like, I feel the pressure of like, okay, the restaurant opened up 2 weeks ago, and if we don't go within the next week or so, like, we're like a piece of shit, you know?
Yeah, I guess so, hey?
And it's terrible because, like, the lines are terrible at front, and I'm not the type of, like, I used to come from the country, right? So, like, I would find out about these restaurants, like, years after. I'd be like, oh, there's a restaurant. Like, the other day we were running at Cinnamon Park, I'm like, well, since when is this?
No, I feel that, and like you can also find those patterns in music as well, like especially the rap game, especially hip hop, right? It's just like one example, like, that I don't like using but is an absolutely valid example, is mumble rap. You know, like, as soon as mumble rap came around, all these mumble rappers came out, and I'm just like, why the hell are there so many of them, and why do they all have different colored hair, and why do they all, like, you know, that kind of stuff. And I'm like, did they all just start at the same time, or did one just inspire the other and everybody wanted to, you know, just jump on that train? Even like lo-fi music is a big one too. All of a sudden you went from having like maybe like 10 well-known lo-fi producers in the last, I don't know, 10 years, maybe 5-6 years, and now everyone's a lo-fi producer. You know, you can like literally find lo-fi channels on YouTube, and there's like an endless supply of like different lo-fi music, to the point where it's just like they almost bleed into one another, and it's just like it's just so oversaturated, like you can't even be bothered to find out, oh, who's the one who produced this and this, because it all sounds so similar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, like, what was lo-fi in 2018? Like, I didn't even know what was lo-fi. Like, I'd never even heard of lo-fi. Like, it was obviously a thing that's coming up, but like, it wasn't like the go-to thing. Like, most people, if you told them lo-fi, they would think of, like, is that like a video game or something? You know, I feel like, at least, in my opinion. Sure. Obviously, like, I'm not in this scene, but like, it wasn't as prominent of a genre as it is now. Now it's like you hear people like on YouTube all the time, like, oh, I just put lo-fi music when I study, and that's super cool. But kind of rounding back to what you just said, like, about, like, you know, like, everyone is kind of jamming into the same thing and they're trying to go after that same sound. I think that one of the themes, kind of just to segue into today's theme, is like, you know, like, one of the things that I really want to focus on personally is not get captured by that pressure, and really focus on the things that I really want to focus on, you know, developing the habits that I really want to instill in myself to get me the results over time. Because I don't know if you've noticed this, but like, when you just go after everything and you're like, oh, I'm going to miss out on this, I'm going to miss out on that, you know, it ends up getting you almost nowhere. Like, the results you get are minimal or smaller or not as big as you would as if you just consistently gone through with what you're planning on doing.
Right. Well, yeah, you set yourself up with small expectations, small goals, you get small results, you know? Right? You know, and conversely, I mean, if you set yourself up for big goals, obviously take more time, but then the payout, I mean, assuming that you go and plan everything correctly, but yeah, the payout obviously much more rewarding, right? But I feel like that would be, you know, in terms of you know, moving forward and progressing from goal to goal to big idea to big idea, you know, like it all depends on how well I mean, we've had this execution over I mean, we have this conversation over and over and over again, but yeah, it's execution, right? And which also ties into what you were saying earlier, habits, right? And I'm sure you can tell me all about habits. I mean, you've been on my butt about forming this habit and that habit. Like, I mean, just, you know, just for anybody listening out there, like, before I met Vince, I was a very kind of wait and see kind of guy. You know, I was the kind of person who could, you know, fill my time up with things, but with no focus. Like, so, I mean, you know, by some miracle, I'm, you know, making and selling music. And, you know, I've been doing that sort of consistently for like the last, I don't know, close to 5 years. But up until this point, it seemed like I was just accumulating, you know, I'm nearly stockpiling music and not releasing it, not doing anything with it, that sort of thing. But yeah, Vince comes along and then he starts, you know, literally being like, hey, this is why this is important. This is why you should have goals. This is why you should think about how to do releases. And it began to fill in this thing that I hadn't really realized that I had been missing or needing, which was focus, right? And a lot of, you know, how to maintain that focus is to, you know, create the habits that, you know, let you consistently achieve the goals you need to set, you know, whether they be micro goals or major goals kind of thing.
Right. And I mean, that's humbling to hear, that I was able to, you know, have a little bit of an impact like that to even just one person. But I would kind of argue that I think focus isn't the right word. I think intention.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
I think intentions is the big one that I've kind of themed myself over, because, you know, focus is I think it's called exhaustible resource.
Yes.
It's a depletable resource. I'm not too sure of the term, but it's this term that it's just something that you can lose focus very quickly. You know, we're built in a society that, you know, we're built on Vine, 6-second videos, 15-second stories, and we barely watch the 15-second stories. So, you know, I think focus is something that we've definitely lost. But intention is like kind of that overarching force behind every single one of your actions. So like whenever they say like, oh, you didn't like the gift they gave me, but it's the intention that counts, you know, like that's what it was. But if your intentions are good over time, I think that your focus and your activities and your habits and your actions kind of start to align in the right direction, right? So yeah, anyways, I just wanted to touch base on that, because I think that's what you were talking about, is the focus part was really being intentional with what you're doing rather than just stockpiling beats and not knowing what to do with them, because you were focused when you were making those beats.
I see.
Right?
Yeah, that's true. And you know what, actually, just to add to that, I remember one of the big questions, and it's the simplest question in the world, but also one of the hardest ones to answer, was whenever I talk to you about, you know, what I want to do with this music. Oh, I want to make this beat. I want to do this. And, you know, the first thing you'd always ask is, well, why? I'm like, and I just sit there like dumbfounded. I'm like, well, nobody's really asked me why I want to make music or why I want to make this beat or what I want to do with this and this and that, right? They say that if you, like, you know, let's say somebody asks you a question or asks you a question, you answer and they say why, and then you answer again, you say why, right? And you ask 6 times and you get to the real intent of like what you want to do. You know what I mean? But anyway, yeah, so like Vince asks me like, well, why do you want to do this? Like, what do you want to, like, where do you aim to go with your music? And at the time of the conversation, you know, I kind of thought to myself, dang, have I just been like, you know, literally trying to ride off my talent and that's it? Like, you know, it requires the work and organization and effort and, you know, investment in order to advance yourself, right? And talent of course is important, but I feel like hard work and again, intention determines those who are talented and successful, and those who are just starving artists, and they end up just that's it, just pools of wasted talent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't know. I think that it's about realizing that and just not being, like you said earlier, complacent. So, but speaking of kind of intentions, what are we're gonna kind of roll this into the topic of the podcast for today. But like, what are some of the intentions or I guess goals or resolutions? We're recording this right now in December for in advance, because we like to prepare in advance, right. But technically this is releasing in the New Year's. Mm-hmm. So we just came out of a really, really difficult year. Everyone has gone through I can't even name it, the pandemic, the losses we went through, the Black Lives Matter, and there's that massive explosion that happened in, I forgot which country.
Which countries? There were like several.
Right, yeah. And there's just so much that happened, and it kind of created this new life. But that being said, with the new year kind of rolling in right now, I think everyone usually tries to set these New Year's resolutions, set the tone for the year. What are some of the things that you're trying to accomplish in 2021?
Okay, well, first and foremost, I think the first thing you want to accomplish is survive. And what I mean by survive is like literally like make it out of 2020 with my physical, mental, emotional intact, right? And I'm not saying survive as in like, I just want to make it out of this pandemic. I just, want to not escape, but like move into the new year, intact, so that I can go into the next part, which is after survival, is thrive, right? I want to thrive, right? And considering we've had all this time spent inside to reflect upon everything going on in 2020, and let's be real, like, I hope that if you like spent most of your time in 2020 indoors, that you picked up some sort of skill, you taught yourself something, or you reevaluated somehow. I just hope that somehow you use your time constructively, personally, right? So in terms of the whole thriving thing, like, for example, one tangible goal that I emerged out of 2020 thinking, at least in terms of music, is like, hey, I want to get to 1 million. I'm going to make it to 1 million streams on streaming services in terms of all my music. Like, I want that to be a quantifiable number that I can achieve within, let's say, the next. I originally want to say for the next year. I'm sure that could be possible with pulling the right strings, but within, but 1 million is like a number that I actually want to chase. Back then I used to be complacent with like 1,000. If I got to 1,000, I'd be like, oh man, this is sick, my song's blowing up. But realistically, like, the number 1 million doesn't just represent a whole bunch of people playing my stuff. It represents putting the effort, time, marketing, investment, and intention into pushing my music to the next level, right? So obviously when I say I want to get to 1 million streams, it means so much more than that, especially when I explain it that way. But that's like, for example, one major goal that I'm sticking to for this year. Like, I want to attach a quantifiable number, but I also, behind that, it means I also want to increase the quality of what I'm putting in to my music in order to reach that number. Does that make sense?
My man. I think that's good, and I think it's you can have the best music in the world with no marketing. It's hard to find you, but usually the best music or the best quality stuff will get found. So it's a little bit of like not a perfectly balanced scale. It's more like you really have to focus on the quality of the music, but marketing will definitely help. And we're not all perfectly talented at music, and some people need to push more marketing because we need to make up for where we're. Well, that sounds terrible, but
conversely speaking, there's lots of terrible music, and I'm saying this subjectively because I can be a music snob, but there's a lot of terrible music out there with like millions and millions of views, and people who have money to blow according to what they put out there on their lifestyle, but but what made them get there? Their connections and their marketing and their investment into pushing that music forward. I mean, don't get me wrong, there could be actually genuinely, in my opinion, bad music out there that's actually really good to somebody else, but hey, that's a subjective thing.
Right, that's like half the pop music to you though.
no, true, he's not lying when it comes to music snobbery. I'm on absolute the top of that. That is I think back then in the day, I think Tinder had this thing where it let you describe a personality trait of yours or something. I can't remember if it's Tinder, one of those dating apps, and I've one of the things I put down there was music snob. I'm like, yeah, that's number one, that's me.
That's hilarious. So you would say that for 2021, one of your goals is to reach 1 million plays or streams on one of your songs? Would you say that's
one of well, I mean, one would be great, but I'm thinking between all my music in total, right?
Okay, in total. Okay,
in total. If I was gonna set an even smaller goal, I would like to reach 100K on one song.
Right.
At least one. For as a micro goal at least, right?
Okay.
That doesn't actually, right now where I'm at, that doesn't seem that far away, to be fairly honest with you. It just requires a bit more of a little bit more ingenuity and a bit more of a push, right? But yeah, no, I absolutely feel like that's something that is attainable on the horizon. And honestly, for the creative, that's just a milestone. That's obviously just a milestone. It's not like I'm gonna hit 1 million and I'm like, okay, I'm done. It's just
job's done.
Yeah, right. Yeah, job's not done. But for me, that's just a milestone that I'd like to reach, to be okay, well, I've passed this goal point in my career. And obviously, because streaming services is sort of the way to make income in music right now. The extra money that comes with it would be nice, but it's more the reflection of how far I can push myself in that music. Again, 1 million doesn't necessarily mean I'm out there to be oh, I have 1 million hits. It's more of the effort that goes into reflecting that you can achieve 1 million.
Right, and I mean, so personally, I've also, we both dropped a track today. Let's go. At the time of recording, right? So the time this is dropping, this has been almost a month, or at least 2 weeks since our tracks dropped, but we each dropped a track. So Danilo's got a track called Amethyst, featuring Angel and David, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is on all streaming platforms as well. I just dropped a track called Voicemails, which is very not your typical track. But they're very completely genres, by the way. It's completely different genres. Danilo produces, I'd say, more R&B with a little bit of a twist of lo-fi. And although we are contemplating trying to make a track together since the longest time ever, it is slightly difficult to mash that into a very hard EDM pops chill side of my production. So, but anyways, it's you just dropped a track, but I think that it's also about increasing pretty much all the aspects. And I think that when you do reach that goal, because you will, you'll be able to look back at everything you've done and not just be oh, well, why did this happen? It's kind of when an Instagram photo hits well and you're why did this do well? And you don't know why. It almost, how do I explain this? It almost takes away from the almost the pride that you have from making this. I don't know if that makes sense. With Amethyst dropping, that's one of your tracks that's coming out, but once you hit that 100K, if you've actively pushed, you've pushed for marketing, you've pushed for the business side of it, you've made your connections, you've done the production, you've gotten feedback from other people, what's working, you've gone and reached out to artists that sing well, that will work well, you've gotten new plugins, you've done all that work. Mm-hmm. And then when you reach that 100K or that million, mm-hmm. it's so much more rewarding because you actually know why it happened. Instead of an Instagram post blowing up and you're well, why did this happen? You have no idea. You don't feel like you deserved it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, and you know what? We literally had that happen to me. Was it last week? I think it was last week. Yeah, I posted a post to Instagram, and like I don't know what hashtag I used, but all of a sudden my engagement was up like 300% or something like that. Like I had absolutely no clue what the heck I did, but all of a sudden I have like, and like for a guy like me, I have like just shy of 1K followers, right? My average post has something from 50 to 70 likes maybe, or something like that, and I'd be lucky if I get 10 saves on a post. This particular post ended up getting like 40 something plus saves and over 100 something likes or something like that. And I'm like literally talking to Vince. I'm like, what did I do? We need to capitalize. What did I do? What happened? Like, you know, what's the magic thing, right? And then I posted a post afterwards on purpose, using some of the hashtags that I hadn't used before on the previous post that blew up, right? And then I noticed that, like, okay, well, engagement on this one sucked, you know? So, and you know, I don't take it too harshly or anything like that, but I'd like to have a clear-cut answer as to what I did. And that it is kind of frustrating. It's hard to appreciate that sort of victory, because it wasn't a earned victory. It was like I did something, put it out there, and it blew up. I have no idea why. Like, you know. No,
and I mean, yeah, that's what I was like alluding to, is like the fact that once you achieve that goal in music, you'll know that it'll be something that you earned yourself. So we kind of went off on a really big tangent. So number one goal is to reach at least 100K on one song, or 1 million in total overall arcing. What would be something else that you kind of want to achieve this year in 2021?
What I want to achieve. What happened here? Oops. Okay, one of the other things I want to do from a physical aspect is just, you know, I want to build myself back up to be able to run half marathons. And I've just started getting back into that. That's the thing. I used to give myself the excuse that, like, the only time I would push myself to run is during a marathon, right? Normally when I used to train with my dad, like, you know, I would go at my dad's pace, and, like, you know, God bless my dad. Like, he's great. He's the guy who got me into marathons, but I'd be lucky if he could keep up with me, for 5K, you know? And so, you know, part of me would slow down for him, that sort of thing. Love you, Dad, by the way. Like, you know, great runner, like, for your age. You know, you can move great. It's just that, you know, I know that, like, I can outpace you pretty easily, right? And so,
hey, if your dad listens to this podcast, I will be thoroughly humbled.
I'll make sure he listens to it. It's gonna be great. Okay. But yeah, no, like, I want to get to the point. I mean, ultimately, the goal is to be able to start running the full marathons, right? Which is like 42K, I believe it is. Right. But I remember, like, I only started running half marathons in 2019, and I feel like I was barely surviving those runs by the skin of my teeth. Like, I would be finishing that run and then just feeling it for, like, the entirety of next week. And then, of course, your motivation just goes all the way, because you're done, right? You're just like, you finished the run, and your motivation just goes down, and you're just like, okay, well, you know, I did that for myself. You know, I'm going to, like, you know, spoil myself, or I'm just going to take it easy, because, yeah, I ran a half marathon. Go me. But I feel like, and, you know, this is part of the reason I started running, it's just like, why should it just be because you competed in a thing, right? You should be able to do this for yourself all the time, right? And that's one thing that I feel like, for me as a creative, that I've struggled with is I've been, you know, music gives me an emotional outlet, it gives me a creative outlet, it gives me an intellectual outlet, but I don't have a physical outlet. I don't have anywhere to, I don't have anything to build up my actual body, right? Because I don't go to the gym, although I should. I mean, that would be an easy solution, but I love...
You will.
And I will, yeah, but I love running first and foremost. I love running, right? So, you know, this guy's been taking me on, I think we're on the second week now of our runs. Last week we did, what did we do, 5K? Was it 5K? And then this week we doubled that and we got to 10K, and we weren't even tired. It's just that, you know, we had to go home and record this podcast. You know,
I was tired, but this guy clearly is already above my level.
But yeah, no, that's another big thing for me is getting just physically active. And the thing is, let's be real. Like I'm 31 now, right? And 2 more years, and it's just going to be downhill from here, physically speaking. And that's something like, you can't fight against time, but you can keep your body in shape. So that's absolutely one thing that as I enter my 30s, I'm beginning to really think is becoming very important, like getting physical, like staying physical, staying in shape. And part of the blessing of this whole like COVID thing is, having to stay inside and, eat what's at home, right? Like I mean, as much as I miss eating out, I also have begun to not miss it so much, like, I've begun more paying attention to like how much I'm eating, what I'm consuming, and because you have all the control at home rather than if you, I mean, obviously you can like, go skip the dishes and order like, something a little more diet friendly, but at the same time, just the fact that you're inside just gives you more of the opportunity to cook for yourself and manage your dietary intake, right? And a lot of what I used to do back then was just eat whenever I felt like it, and I eat whatever I wanted, right? But now it's different. Like I definitely feel like eating whatever you want is an excessive thing, and I want to cut out the excess, right? But again, big thing for me, like get back into running half marathons. I want to be able to, by the summer, get to be able to run 20K as if I'm running the 10Ks right now that I am with Vince,
That's impressive, because I've never run 20K. I've never run more than, I think I ran 12K the other day. So yeah, that's impressive. And I'm glad that I'm being part of the journey. I love that.
Well, you low-key kind of like really kind of like, I feel like incepted that into me, because like we had this conversation, I think about a month ago, about how you wanted me to get more active, and I'm like, okay, like, but I'm like, I wasn't as like obviously just going, because whenever it talks to anything else, whenever it comes to any other idea, any other vision, I'm like gung-ho, I'm like, yeah man, let's do it, I'm ready, like that's a great idea, this is sick. And then you're just like, you need to get more active, and I'm like, yeah, I know. Yeah, but yeah, no, I'm glad I have that push too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it does take a little bit of an external force, and I think that's why they say that like you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with, and that's why like hanging out with people that do the things that you want to do, I think is a good influence. Like since I hang out with you, I released a song on Spotify, and I hadn't since. It's my second song on Spotify. So, we definitely have like mutual impacts that kind of bleed onto each other. And I think that's a positive thing. And I think we can build on top of that. So looking forward to it. So you got 2 goals. Do you have anything else? So you've got run half a marathon by summer, and then also hit that stream count. So what else you got?
Okay, so 2 major ones, or they're kind of hand in hand, because I've touched on a creative goal. I've touched on physical goal. Finally, financial. Like, I'm setting this for the end of the year. But I want to move out. Like, I've been living, I'm still, I'm 31, still living with my parents. Ain't no shame in that. Like, but I absolutely, I'm getting to the point where I'm just like, you know what? I need to find my own space, and I mean, not much else to say other than that's what I want to do, and I'm going to make that happen. It's just been a little tough, like, with, like, I didn't feel like it would be a good time to move out during COVID. You know what I mean? But I feel like that's absolutely something that happened. I just would like to see how the rest of the year goes, especially if restrictions could, like, I would hate to move out and then not be able to come back here and see my family. You know what I mean? Because but that's basically one of the big barriers to that. The other is obviously I'm just not quite there financially, but we'll get there. That's something that everybody has to deal with and struggle with, right? But I was blessed enough to have a full-time job during COVID. Still have it, and nothing but thankful, and I just gotta keep my head above water and like keep pushing, like stay. That's something I can just basically, I have to just stay on my routine in terms of how I'm managing my finances, and I could very easily have a place by like the fall or winter,
Yeah, and I just want to touch on the point, like 31, still living at home. There's absolutely no problems with that. I think I've been listening to a lot of Gary Vee lately, and he preaches that. And it's a really tough place to be in. Like I remember even myself, I'm 26 right now, and I just moved into a new place, and thankful for my parents who kind of were definitely a good stepping stone towards helping me towards achieving that or doing that. But it was definitely tough. I mean, I lived outside the city, so that was a little bit of a different push for me. But anyways, I don't want to drag too much onto it. I just want to say that there's absolutely no problem on that, and I think it's amazing that you're setting that intention, if I can place that word like that, to move out, because you may not be able to move out, but you might be able to save up another extra $15,000-$20,000, which can go towards a deposit, if you're aiming to get a condo or a house, instead of having to rent an apartment. And
exactly, and like it's not that I couldn't or didn't want to. It's just I just felt like there was nothing that was making it an urgent need, right? But now I feel I'm at the point where just having to have my own space is becoming a priority for me. And don't get me wrong, love my family, absolutely love my family. Like, I've got a good relationship with my parents and my grandparents. But, it's just, you get to the point where it's just like, okay, well, I need to know what I'm like independent,
And yeah, personally, like last year, 2020, is the first year where I was able to live alone for the most part. And I really wanted that, just because I was reliant on my parents a lot for a lot of things. And now it's like, I have to do every single chore. I have to take care of all the everything that happens in this condo. The dishwasher broke the other day, the heater's not working. Like, I have to go handle that. And although I absolutely hate it, I think that it brings a level of inner strength and confidence to be able to say that I'd done that, and that I realized that I know that. And also, like, the other day, like I told you, I put in a security camera onto the wall. And I hadn't like used a drill like once in my life before. So
wow.
Yeah, and I figured it out. Like I tried to just drill the screw into the wall, and it didn't work. And then I used a bit and found out the proper size, and then drilled it in, and then it worked. And like it's like the smallest thing ever, but I'm super proud of it. But anyways, I don't want to derail too much, but I just wanted to touch on that, because it's about like building that self-confidence that you can do that. So I'm
sorry, go on.
No, I just meant, like, living alone has been able to allow more opportunities to do that, more. It's like pretty much every day I have to do that. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I fail all the time. Like, there's dishes in the sink right now that aren't washed, so like it's not like it's a perfect, but it gives me that, it forces me to have to do that, like if I have guests over and they come back and they're like, well, Vince is just a slob, that's on me. It's not like my parents definitely have already gone through that churn of developing those good habits, but I needed to, and living alone has given me, or propelled me into that environment. So I really hope that you get to do that as well, bro.
Yeah, for sure. And I really hope you get to have guests over one day this year, Oh,
bruh, that was like the one thing I was looking forward to the most, was like being able to like have people over.
Yep.
And then nope.
All right. I think your turn to talk. I've named 3 things for my 2021. I think it's your turn to spill some of the beans on yours.
All right. Well, it's kind of funny, we kind of have a similar vibe, but I think for me, I really, how do you explain it? Like, I really focused in on intentions and habits.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So some of my goals, it's funny because I'm trying to aim more for like the infrastructure, the intentions and the habits around, rather than actual specific goals and pinpoints, So I kind of determined 3 pillars that I really want to surround my goals around. And the 3 pillars are education, health, and reflection.
Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So education, I kind of wrote some notes on it, but basically like health health encompasses like, like the fact that if I set the intentions of becoming more healthy, that means physical activity. That means, being more healthy mentally as well. Like mental health is kind of what this podcast is about, right? So that's definitely something that's encompassed, and it's just kind of those global categories. So within there's obviously things like, that I want to be doing there. So education, I just really want to, I come up and I'm like thinking like, like my photos are dope or whatever, my videos are dope. Why am I not getting better? Why am I not getting the results that I want? And for me, it's like just, there's more to learn. I clearly don't know it all. So
right.
I think I want to improve. And I think understanding that and appreciating that more and moving towards more of like not being focused on the results and just being like, right, what can I actually learn? What can I implement? So I think that's one thing that I really want to add into kind of like my overall goals in general. Education is also like, for me, how do I explain this? It's like, if I want to learn about finances, because I feel like also another goal that we kind of have in common is that like, my goals, like I've been terrible with finances. Like I just, like moving into my own place, clearly like I said, it's something else that I have to face on, right? I don't have my parents to fall back on. So it's learning how to really effectively create a budget, sticking within those limits. And, I recently like kind of closing some bank accounts, closing some credit cards, because I just couldn't keep track of it all. And I didn't have that habit of, inputting those expenses into a spreadsheet, and just keeping track of it. So now I really just want to do that. And, I kind of wrote some notes here. I'm just going to read it out. But like, education is like the single most powerful and effective way to acquire new skills. Right?
Okay.
Or refine the ones that we already have. Yeah.
So just to sort of reiterate, you're rather than like a tangible, achievable goal, you have these 3 pillars that you're trying to integrate sort of into your lifestyle more. Is that what I'm sort of picking up here?
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's the accurate way. And it's, I want to build the infrastructure around those pillars.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So it obviously goes into more specific goals, and like setting specific goals. I got that. Like doing to-do lists is like my,
you are like the to-do list guy. Like, let's be real. Like,
yeah, you kind of got a little taste of that recently, but, yeah. So like, for example, like, I just kind of noted down. So I said like having more knowledge will also make me build like self-trust in myself and help me guide towards more positive and intentional decision making, right? So how will I make this goal like, and this is one thing I would urge anyone who's listening to kind of apply to their goal setting when they're doing, when they're setting their resolutions for the new year, is really think of how you're going to do this. Don't just be like,
I want to do this. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like one thing I would challenge you even, bro, to think about like your marathon, your half marathon case. So if you want to be running, 21 kilometers, by summer, that means you need to be able to be running like, well, I mean, you already met the halfway. So I feel like it's not that far away from being achievable, but like technically, like if you, let's say you weren't running at all and you first time running now, you'd have to be able to run like at least 10K by May,
right?
So that's kind of setting those things. And like, anyways, I'm digressing a little bit too much, but so how am I going to apply this? I'm going to be reading daily, so minimum of 15 minutes. And this is a tough one because I've been trying to do this for a while. And I do read, like, it's 15 minutes. So, like, instead of, like, the last 15 minutes in my day going on my phone, like, I'm just plugging my phone into my charger, leave it away, and just open up. And if I read the same page over and over for 15 minutes, whatever, just because I'm so tired or I can't focus, whatever it is, at least I put in that time.
Right.
And there is going to be times where I actually probably go over 15 minutes and I read half an hour,
Yeah.
So those are things that I definitely want to be doing. Listening. So this is all part of the education again. But listening or reading the news is something I feel like I don't do at all. Like, I found out that there's a vaccine from someone else at work. who told me that the vaccine got released in London, and I'm like, I don't know this because I don't read the news. I live under a rock. So I think that's one thing in terms of education I really want to implement in my life. So yeah, those are the kind of things I want to be doing. Obviously, like, you know, really getting to research also stuff, like I said, like finances, you know, things that I'm not particularly confident about, instead of like always being like, I can fix it later, or, you know, asking friends. Like, it's always good to ask friends who have a good handle on it, but
right.
you know, I can literally just go online, and that's what I did for my new bank account. I went online, I was like, okay, how do I want to set up my bank account? I went and looked up on a couple of people who had good systems, and I was like, okay, new bank account, you know, and I used the bank account at Tangerine. That's where I created my bank account. And when I told my mom this, who's very traditional, she's like, no, you can't close your bank account. You can't do this. You can't, no, like, that's an online bank account. Like, how do you get your, I'm like, Mom, just like, at that point, you know, I had to learn to be like, this is what I want to do, and I don't need to, I haven't used cash in years. So like,
right.
I think that, you know, like I said, educating myself, I had the confidence to be able to not talk back, but explain to my mom a little bit of the benefits of why I'm doing that. So that's the first one, is education. Next one would be health, like I said. So mind, body, and soul is kind of the theme on that one.
Oh, okay.
So the body is the physical aspect. I used to be very fit. I used to do judo as a full-time athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, before I go on any further, I kind of didn't stop and ask you if you had any feedback in regards to like the education.
Oh,
part.
no. I thought that, I thought they were absolutely, like, because it's interesting, because I obviously, you know, gave some very quantifiable milestones in terms of goals, right? So I think that it's very interesting, because sort of in an untraditional sense, well, actually, I don't know how people go about setting their resolutions and goals going in, like, in January nowadays. But to me, I felt like the fact that you went from a more infrastructure mindset is very interesting, right? Because I gave some very clear, quantifiable milestones to reach that I wanted. As like, obviously, you know, it goes deeper than that, right? And, you know, it's like it's not just about hitting the numbers, right? But you instead went into integration into, like, you know, basically, yeah, you're talking about basically how to augment your lifestyle, which basically overall improves everything. Like, you talk about infrastructure, and I'm just like, yeah, that makes so much sense. You're strengthening your foundations, right? Which is absolutely a great goal to work towards, you know. So in terms of feedback, I'm like, oh, those are very interesting. I never thought of it that way. You know, you kind of like, you know, it's almost like you're equipping yourself better versus for the journey, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I appreciate the fact that you can take a step back and sort of set those kind of goals, because that's not something I feel like the typical person, if you ask them what their goals are, especially, or what their New Year's resolutions are, I don't feel like that's a very atypical thing to say, you know?
Right. And I think that's kind of stemmed from what I've kind of been reading, and hopefully we'll have the time to touch base on some of those things in this podcast. But yeah, I just like, mind you, these are personal goals, and I do have like specific goals that I want to reach, but they're more like the business goals. Like, to me, like, yeah, I would love to be able to run a half marathon with you, bro. Like, that'd be awesome. But like, to me, it's like, if I run every single day, or if I manage to run like 15 to 20 kilometers a week, you know, if I'm running a 10K on Saturdays and once more during the week, you know, I will be able to run that half marathon regardless. You know, I could probably just not even train for it, and that's part of my training, running. So kind of one thing that we had talked about before, you know, when I was kind of calling you about some of the things that are happening in my life, I think that the infrastructure of my life, like the things, the balance that I have isn't quite right, and I can't come back after a bad incident in my life and come back and be like at a safe spot, like, because everything else is just going haywire. So right. I think that's why I had that approach of so you're creating right. Actually, going back on the whole marathon goal for me, right, I said, and I carefully worded this, but I said I wanted to run a half marathon like I do a 10K. You know what I mean? Okay.
So okay. because I know I can run a half marathon. However, I come out of it feeling like
dead,
and I feel like, you know, I can just, you know, give myself the time off after doing a half marathon, right? But I want the strength to be able to run one and then feel like I did this morning and go home and just be like, all right, well, I have the energy to go and have coffee and record a podcast with Vince, you know? The last time I ran a half marathon, I literally just passed out for the entire day. Like, and I was just like, yeah, I'm done. And then I'm like, after that, I'd walk over to the stairs and I'd just stare at the stairs and be like, oh my God, those stairs are my worst enemy right now. Like,
yeah, no. And I think that's amazing. I think we kind of have polar opposites on that, because like you have the goal and I have the how. Yeah. Like I didn't set specific goals, but I set how.
Right.
So one thing I would kind of urge you, if you have the time, to like kind of just, and like I mentioned behind, is think of how can you put that infrastructure in, you know, like we've started this Saturday thing. So that might be a how you, and you might have already thought about this, like, you know, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, but, you know, like that you do want to reach that half marathon. And, you know, you're saying, I love that you said that, like you want to reach that half marathon, like you're running a 10K. And yes, that's amazing, but now you got to implement that. How are you going to put that into your life, right? So yeah, and thanks for the clarification, because I think that makes a world of a difference of a goal.
Now you're going to your second infrastructure goal, which was health.
Yeah. So
okay.
I don't want to linger too much on these, because like this podcast is going to last forever, and we do have some things to talk about. But yeah, so like health wise, like obviously mental health is a big one for me. So if it's, you know, I think that maintaining a good physical health, I think, is good for me as well. But doing, you know, eating healthy, and it kind of they all kind of bleed into each other. But health should. Like, you know, if I educate myself into proper nutrients and proper recipes, proper cooking styles, and I feel more comfortable with it, it'll be easier for me to want to just, you know, fry up something, or I mean, I guess frying is not healthy, but, you know, cook up something, cook up something really quickly, with less barriers, you know, like right now it's like sometimes like I can't even remember the last time I do that, but, you know, I'll try like a recipe online, and I'm left with all these obscure ingredients that I don't know what the heck to do with them, and they just go to waste, you know, like. Yeah. But my mother, who's amazing at cooking, absolutely love her cooking, because she's, you know, she's kind of been around the world and got to experience a lot of their cuisine, and she's very handy in the kitchen, let's put it that way, and yeah, like she'll literally like just go online, and like if she has something left over, she'll find a recipe on that and start cooking that, right? Oh wow. Well, I don't even have like that like infrastructure. Like I'm like, man, I have to go grocery shopping again, like, you know. So like I said, like creating that health, if that means like, for example, I realize, so this bleeds into the last pillar, reflection. So if I realize that I'm not having enough time because I'm too stressed and I can't even go to the grocery store, then something needs to change, you know. Right. So anyways, so physical, mental, and health, you know, the food, everything, it kind of bleeds onto that. But I don't really have specific things. I would like to do like one new recipe every month. That would be really great, something that's out there. So like I haven't really baked a lot of things. So I'd love to bake like a pie, or my sister's been really into making macaroons. Macaroons, okay, cool. Yeah, and she's been getting better, and like, you know, macaroons are extremely hard to make apparently. So props to her for doing that. But stuff like that, you know, like challenging myself, and, you know, this, I don't want to become a chef. That's not my intentions. So I it's kind of just more for like I said, my health, my body, and now I'm not eating curry every single week like I am right now. So
man, curry is amazing. Like
yeah, nothing wrong with Japanese curry. If you guys want some boss ass curry, then you'll holla at your boy. But yeah, last pillar, just kind of briefly touch on it. Something I would urge also a lot of people to do is reflect. So reflection has been a big thing. I kind of pushed Danilo to do the same thing. I've been pushing you to you know, write in your journal, and I think it's something we don't do enough of. You know, like I try to implement like a weekly review, monthly review, quarterly review with the business, and annual review. And, you know, I think, like, you know, we're recording this, like I said, in December, and one of the things I want to do before the end of the year is really just sit with myself and be like, okay, you know, 2020 was a rough year, but what did I actually feel, and why did I feel it? You know, and one thing that my counselor has really tried to instill in me is trusting myself. And it's something that I find extremely difficult to do. I don't know why, but I find it extremely difficult to do, to just sit there and trust myself, because I'm like, I don't know anything. So like I said, education is going to help fix that as well. And, you know, trusting that, you know, if I'm, you know, if I feel like I'm all over the place with my finances, okay, then I am all over the place. Then how do I fix that? You know, before I would just be like, well, everyone else seems to be fine with it, so I'll be fine with it, you know? So really reflecting on, you know, my day-to-day, my life, and, you know, implementing like daily practices. Like I really want to journal. I've been journaling pretty frequently, but kind of fallen off the train tracks recently. But yeah, I like reflecting every day, and, you know, at the end of the week, you know, instead of going to grab bubble tea with my bro, I might have to sacrifice that to just spend some time and, you know, really reflect on how my feelings, my emotions, my actions, and where my habits kind of brought me, or how they dictated how I acted. So were they in line with my intentions, with my values, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of this long-winded explanation for my goals, but those 3 pillars are kind of what I'm aiming to really focus on this year.
Oh, awesome. Just to, like, you know, touch on your goals there, what I like is, like, obviously they all tie into each other. And what happens is, like, my takeaway from that is that, you know, like, you're essentially aiming, and as everybody should, to, you know, bring yourself up holistically, right? Which is, you know, very good. And I suppose you can just say, like, kind of sum this up in, like, you know, a very easy to say way, which is, you know, you just want to be better in general, right? However, you being able to break that down into pillars and infrastructure is so important, because it's so easy to just tell somebody, yeah, this year I want to be better. This year I want to, you know, eat better. This year I want to, like, but then the ability to break it down into identifiable things that you want to improve on, I feel like is something that not very many people might have the ability or luxury to do, because they don't know how to go about, you know, delving into these areas of life. I mean, you know, like, the older you get, the more things you have to do, the faster time goes. And it can be difficult to, you know, identify the things that need work, right? Especially when you're so busy working on this and that. And, you know, maybe many of us weren't as busy as some others during 2020, but for sure 2021 is going to be a test of, you know, for many of us, like, what did we learn in 2020 and how can we be better for it, you know? So yeah, I really like the approach that you took in terms of goal setting. It's hard for me to say if it was whether it was orthodox or unorthodox. If anything, it's more orthodox when you think about it. But, like, yeah, no, I really appreciate that insight. It's always been, I feel like with you, like, sort of, there's always something insightful I can always kind of absorb, you know, which is great. And, you know, like being a sponge in that situation, you know. But yeah, no, super interesting way to look at it going into 2021.
Yeah, and I think, like, don't get me wrong, like, one of the things I kind of want to touch base is, like, you know, setting specific goals is important, and it's not like I'm avoiding those. Like I said, like, I have that daily thing where I want to be writing every single day. I want to be reading every single day. You know, those are specific goals. And those are important. Like, you cannot, in my opinion, you can't really go anywhere if you just say, like, I want to get better. So if I say, like, I want to educate myself, I'm not going anywhere. So mind you, I still have specific goals within each one of those categories. Right. And those are important. I just think that, like, since I'm, like, the last 25 years of my life, not that I was setting goals when I was 1, but, you know, the last 10 years, when you set New Year's resolutions, one, like you said, they don't tie into each other, and you don't see the overarching picture. And, like, for me, I set that picture that I wanted. Like, how do I want to be in 2021? And what are the things that are going to stem for that? Education, health, and reflection. Right. And through reflection, I can be like, you know, like, okay, I feel like I'm not, I'm not running enough, I'm not being physical, like not enough physical activity, and then I can start through there and be like, okay, well, let's set a new goal through there, like a specific goal, right? Which kind of ties into like one of the most like traditional business ways of setting goals. And this is not necessarily like resolutions, but it's definitely something that someone can kind of take. It's the theory of SMART, S-M-A-R-T. Okay, and they call it SMART because it's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based. So that's how businesses traditionally have been setting goals recently, because they have to be specific, they have to be measurable, they have to be attainable. So if you set a goal is not a vision, it's a specific to-do list that you can cross off your list, right? So it has to be realistic. So realistic would be like, it's something you can actually do, and attainable would be like, well, the difference between that, attainable would be like, okay, well, like if you and I say, let's make $1 million, that's not realistic, but it's also not attainable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those two kind of like, I would say they kind of overlap on each other a little bit, but then the last element is time-based. So to kind of break down what you had, like your goal is like, you want to be able to run a half marathon by, run a half marathon as if you were running a 10-kilometer run. By summer, you said. So I would encourage you to even set a specific date, because the more specific it is, the more you see the clock ticking. So yeah, you have a very specific, it's like a half marathon as if you were running a 10K. So it's somewhat of a measure, you know how you feel right now. So it's kind of up in the air. So, but you could say that a good measure would be like that you can still go run and you don't feel like you're going to die. Is it attainable? It definitely is. Is it realistic? I think it is.
I think so.
And time-based, you have a time. So props to that. Like that hits all those key marks as a goal. So I think that if someone's listening and they don't know how to set goals or anything, I think that a good place to start would be to just go with that,
Be smart.
Yeah, be smart.
Yeah, good place to start. Be smart.
No, yeah. So that's something that I've been, having gone through education and the education system. That's something we were taught back in the day.
Right.
But then again, I think that there's always a flaw with it, and that's why for me, like even though you set those goals, if you're tired, if you don't feel like that, you're gonna give up on those goals. So like having that infrastructure, having that overarching why, I think will make a big difference. So
right.
I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or.
Well, I had a conversation recently, about, for example, why I make music, right? And that whole thing with ask why 6 times and you'll figure out why you want to do it, like the true reason, right? So a very close friend of mine, my friend Char, she asked me just, well, why do you want to do it? Why do you want to do it? And I just kept naming. And what I finally arrived at was to leave a legacy, right? Which, had a lot more weight to to why I'm doing this than I had originally thought, which goes like kind of deeper into the whole like reflecting thing, right? And it's not something I thought about before, right? But I came to the conclusion that like in terms of like why I want to do it is like at the end of my literally at the end of my life, I want proof of like to be like, hey, I was here and this is what I did, which is interesting, like kind of a little bit of a segue, to be fairly honest with you, but like, you had been just mentioning, why it's important to figure out your why, so I'm just giving my own example here, but then, yeah, it's just like digging deeper into those whys is so important, yeah.
And I think that they call it purpose. So I don't know if anyone out there is listening to Jay Shetty, but he has a podcast called On Purpose, and purpose is kind of like the another thing that they talk about, like why things stick and habits don't stick, kind of thing. So there's like, you have to be able to how you do it, but you also have to want to know why you do it. So what's your purpose, right? So you have to be passionate, you have to love it, you have to be good at it, and then you have to have a purpose, a general direction. So like I think those are the moments that like kind of like when you're in weakness, when you're falling back into bad habits, when you know you've had a bad day, when you've broken up with your ex, when someone in your family has recently passed away, when you know you hurt yourself, you injured, you posted a song on Spotify and there's not as many views, when you you know, your car got in an accident, anything, you know, what are the things, what do you fall back on? And usually it's bad habits, because those things bring us comfort really quickly.
Right.
But if you have a why, and this is something that I'm still trying to develop, you know, like I have a why, but I feel like sometimes it's not strong enough.
Right.
And we could go in a whole other podcast just on that.
Right.
But I think that, yeah, taking some time to really dig deep and be like, why do I actually want to do this? What will this make me better? And I think that's why I put reflection into one of my goals, is because I want to be able to reflect. And the more you see it, the more you do it. And that's a little bit of a segue, because I've been reading this book called Atomic Habits. Well, actually I finished the book. I don't know why I said reading.
I'm sorry, what was the last thing you said? The more you see it, the more you...
So the more you see it, the more you, like, it's actively in your life, you know, like
I see,
you can't ignore it. So for anyone who has read the book, or hasn't read, the book Atomic Habits, I highly recommend you to go and pick up that book and read it. Take as many notes, because I went through this book, and Danilo knows that, like, I've been
with a
raving about this book.
Yeah.
I went ham. And shout out to like the people who recommended to me. I think my friend Kat recommended to me, Ryan San Diego, a bunch of people had recommended it to me, and I was just like, it looks cheesy. There's sparkles on the book. Like, who puts sparkles on the book?
Yeah, but it's eye-catching, no?
Yeah, and I mean, I was like, who puts I don't know, it felt like a female book, not to be sexist or anything, but I don't know, it just felt like it was like targeted to women.
Yeah, okay.
Anyways, absolutely love the book, and it's based on the premise that tiny marginal improvements per day can add up to make a lot of a difference. So that's why he's talking about habits, is like, you know, if you have 1% improvement per day, you will improve drastically over time, because that 1% compounds, right? So it adds up to each other. But kind of the key concepts that he talks about are, in order to make a habit stick, there's like 6 things that you can do, or I only noted 4. There's 4 laws. So there's make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. So that's if you want to implement something into your life. So what I was talking to you about is like that reflection and seeing it every single day. It's making it obvious because it's in your life. Right. You know, if you don't write, you don't reflect, it's not something that you're, you know, you can kind of ignore it. I'll give you an example to everyone who's listening here. Something I'm extremely ashamed of is like when you don't check your finances like I did, you don't know how much you spent. So it's not obvious in your life. You know, you can just spend more, and your credit card limit, whatever, like it's gone. So like when it's not in your face, it's not obvious, it's very easy to forget about it. So that's why I implemented reflection into my kind of overarching goals.
That's one of my favorite ones too, like the whole idea of reflection. And I feel like it's something that, you know, people try to do, but maybe not necessarily do effectively. You know what I mean? Because it's easy to think, oh, I had a bad day, or, oh, this went well. But I think, and that's one of the things, like going back to the whole marathon thing, right? I can reflect, like, I know I have the ability to accomplish running a half marathon, which is 21K. And I can celebrate myself all I want that I can do it. But the question becomes, how do I do it more effectively? You know? And that's the thing. And that's one of the things that I like about your schema there, is that not only can you set yourself in a way that you can achieve your goals, but it allows you to also reiterate how you can continue to achieve further goals more efficiently, more effectively, and more holistically. you know?
Yeah, and that's the whole premise of the thing. It's because like I know I can set goals all day. Like
Yeah.
you ask me right here, I'm gonna name you off like, okay, I want to be able to run. You know, I want to be able to run right away. It's like a 21 half marathon with you. I want to be able to put out like 12 songs this year. I want to be like, and that's all I focus on. But like if you put those goals in place, and then your life derails you because you unintentionally didn't realize that you have a lack of self-confidence, so you always want to go out and be with friends, then that's an issue that wasn't addressed. Thus your goals aren't going to make it, because every single time you fall back into a bad rut, you're just going to want to go hang out with friends.
Right.
So it's like determining those intentions, those habits off the top. And like I said, mind you, I fail at this all the time. It's something that I'm really trying to improve, and that's why I think that for me, according to my own personal reflections, I think that establishing that infrastructure, I think, is the best way for me to kind of tackle 2021 in the best way.
Yeah, this guy just spoke my life there for a couple seconds. I'm like, geez, like that's hitting a little close to home.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. But like I said, there's nothing wrong with setting specific goals like that. Like if those are things and your life is like, maybe you're on top of your own shit, maybe you're on top of your life and things are going well. I'm just, that's who I am, and that's just what I've came to reflect upon and realize. So I need to establish that that infrastructure, and not everyone does. Some people have their infrastructure down, and they're not as much of a train wreck as I am. So like I said, just kind of touching on those points, like to build a new habit, some things that you can consider doing is like make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy and satisfying. So to kind of touch base with that marathon, well actually let's switch it up. One of your other goals was the streams,
right?
So let's go with the stream. So, make it obvious. So what if you had, I don't know, this would be something like you'd have to check your Spotify stream count every single day. I mean, that's an unhealthy habit, so I wouldn't recommend that. But like, some people, what they do is like for YouTube videos, what they'll do is like they'll have like, there's a special clock that like connects to your subscriber count, and it shows you how many subscribers you have. And it shows you, how many subscribers you have. So you can actually see that. So when you walk into your office, which is cool. It's also, I think, a little bit, if you're able to keep it on a healthy level, that's fine. But yeah, making it obvious. So like the marathon, like, maybe that's finding an accountability buddy, finding someone that's going to push you and be like, hey, Danilo, we got to go for the run. So that's another way of making it obvious. Making it attractive is another way. What would be something that kind of pops to your mind when you think of making it attractive, making a habit attractive?
Making a habit attractive in terms of the whole marathon thing?
Let's do. Sorry, you had marathon, streams, and what was the other one?
Finances.
Okay, let's say finances.
Well, I feel like the attractive thing is literally having the finances to access the things that you want, like, and being able to get the things that you want is attractive, right? Right,
but that being said, because you're sacrificing short term for long term.
Well,
so
I guess if you want to make it attractive, just the fact that I can open up my bank account and have a positive balance like that is growing every day in front of my face while sitting in my own place, like that's attractive to me, I guess.
Right, that I think, no, I see what you're saying right there, but I think the premise of this is to make it attractive in the moment.
Oh, in the moment.
Because like you might be like, okay, well your friend's like, okay, well let's go grab drinks, and you're like, well I'm at my budget for this month, I'm at my budget for going out, so all of a sudden saying no to them isn't attractive, if you know what I mean. So how do you in that moment make it attractive?
But having the fact that you know where that budget is going towards is attractive. Like I like the idea of having, like I can say, for me personally, and like I've done this with you before in terms of budgeting, I'm just like, hey man, like can't do this because I'm past my budget, and I have no problem saying that because I know, like, I mean, obviously I feel bad for not hanging out, but also at the same time I'm just like, well, I got to stay on this because I have a plan for this money, right?
Right, and I think that ties into also making it obvious, because if you are aware of your budget, it's a lot easier for you to come back and be like, well, can't do this because I know I'm at my budget,
Right. Yeah, and at the same time, like like, you know, I've had my years where I just like recklessly spent money. Right, I'm like done. With
I feel you.
Yeah, I'm done with that, and I'd rather put it now towards the things that count. And right now, what counts to me is having like a place of my own where I can, you know, I mean, essentially do whatever I want. I mean, not that I don't have freedom here, but like, you know, it's not the same as having, obviously, you know, your own ownership of your own space. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That to me is big. That's a big draw for me. Like the fact that I can, like, because obviously I could probably hold on as long as I wanted to until I, like, you know, maybe got married in the future, or found somebody to marry down the future and stay here if I wanted to. But the idea of ownership of my own space is big. It is, you know, and if something is attractive enough to you, it's going to take up a lot of mental space in your mind. If you want something, you know, you're gonna think about it a lot, to the point where it's just like, oh, I'm thinking about this enough that I got to do something about it. And it's when you start doing something about it, and that's when you can, like, really start applying the things you've learned.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not that I don't believe in you and how much you actually care about getting your own place. Like, I don't think that's the issue I'm concerned about. It's, you know, it's you know, when you do have an emotional roller coaster, it's hard to remember that unless it's obvious and it's attractive to you. So I would say, I think the book kind of hints towards making it attractive by, like, hanging out with people that do the same thing. So if you hang out with people who save and don't go out to eat all the time, then it's going to be more attractive to you, because, like, the people around you, they won't push you to do it, but two, also, like, you have the reassurance that you're a good person for not going out and saying no to other people, you know?
Right.
So, for example, the running, you know, it's attractive. Let's say the girl that you want to date runs, you know, it's going to be hella attractive to you to want to start running more, you know? So that's a good way to making it attractive. There's a few other things, so I urge anyone to kind of read the book if they want to, if they're liking what they're hearing. Making it easy, that would be, like, for example, like with the bank account again thing, it's like making sure that as soon as you get deposit, it transfers a certain amount to your savings right away, right? So that's automating makes it easy. If we were to apply it to running, making it easy would be like,
well, you know what, you can't get as easy as literally getting up, going outside, and putting one foot in front of the other. But what makes it easy, one of the things that makes it easy, for example, is having a partner that you run with. It's like, if somebody's there to be like, hey, let's get up and go, you know, like, I'm more
having like that Saturday that we go every single time kind of thing.
And the fact that you have it to look forward to every week is nice. Right? I mean, then again, I mean, you could say that for me because, you know, like, you know, because you came, like, for example, last 2 times you came to my area, but then what if it was flipped around, right? The fact that, like, if I start coming to you, but then you were at the point where I'm like, oh, well, you know, he's here, it's like, now I'm at your place, and you can just be like, oh, well, he's here now I gotta get up and we're gonna go and kill him.
Right. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And I think last one in here is make it satisfying. So I think they obviously intrinsically having gone for a run is satisfying, but I think we're talking about building runs or habits that aren't, like, you know, what if you're not a runner and you hate running and you want to start running, you know, because that's your goal. So how do you make that satisfying? Is, like, they said, like, even the small thing, like having a to-do list and being able to check that off right away is satisfying in itself, because, like, at the end of the day, I don't know about y'all, but, like, if ever you come back from a busy day and you check, you're like, yo, let's go.
I mean, that's the thing, like, start your days off right, like, you know, and it's as easy as, like, you know, make your bed when you get up, right? Like, as Jordan Peterson, I mean, I know this guy's been referenced forever, but then he always said, you know, make your bed, like, you know, just the fact that you make your space a place that you would want to welcome people into, already set your mind up to work and get to work on your goals, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I just want to kind of touch base because, like, he said, like, if you want to break a bad habit, let's say, like, you want to stop smoking or stop vaping, hint, stop spending, you know, use the inversion of that, the opposite of that. So instead of making it obvious, make it impossible. Make it like, like hide it. Like if you use a vape, then get rid of your vape. If you don't want to spend time on social media, delete the apps. Make it hard for you to actually have to use it. That's kind of like the easy too as well. But just hide it. Like hide it in your mind, in your head. Don't have it obvious in your face. So like don't hang around people that are using Instagram all the time, if that's what you want to do, right? Make it attractive, make it unattractive. So start hanging out or start researching, if it's Instagram again, make it unattractive. So that's a tough one. I can't come up with anything on the spot right now, but I would say something like, hang out with people that aren't necessarily on Instagram all the time, or, read books, hang out with people that read books and that are spending more values on there. Make it hard. Like I said, delete the apps. If you have a bank account that automatically transfers your money once you get your deposit into a savings account, it's hard for you to have to go in, hard, quote unquote, to have to go in and manually put that money back into your other account. And make it satisfying, make it unsatisfying. If you don't want to be spending time on Instagram, look at your report at the end of the week and you're like, wow, I spent 8 hours on social media the last week, so that's unsatisfying and something like that. So that's something that you could use to kind of break out of a bad habit, if that's kind of how you're going for it.
Right.
Okay, so we've kind of capped our time right now, but what I kind of want to leave off on is something that this is back to when Danilo and I kind of rejoined our forces, reconnected recently in 2020, and I think the overarching theme of that first discussion was really clarity.
Yes, absolutely.
And I was a big advocate for that. And if you want a good source for that, I would recommend the book High Performance Habits by Brendan Burchard. And it's kind of going back to that why that we were talking about, and the intention. So if you don't actually know, and it falls back, that's why I implemented reflections again. I keep mentioning that because I'm all proud of it, of how flawless this system is. But the clarity part is just how, like I didn't know, like if you don't know what you want to accomplish during the year, how are you supposed to accomplish it, right?
Right.
If you don't know, and it's like this sounds a little bit obvious now, but like just take some time to really determine, like, okay, like I want to be, like Danilo said, like I want to be financially stable and able to move out of my place. So he's got that clarity in mind, and now that you're able to have that, that all your decisions, you can come back to the drawing board, reflect on it, and be like, like I did spend a little bit too much money,
right? And
although I had fun, eating out with friends, unfortunately, like I know that these friends, they're not going to buy me my house for me, so like I need to come back and check out that. But if you didn't establish that clear goal in your head to start with, you're never going to make it. Like you're just going to be fumbling around. So having that clarity, as well as like what kind of person you want to be, I think is also a huge type of boost for you in your right direction. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Danilo.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. Like one of the things that I remember, one of the first things you asked me was like, what do you identify as? That was like one of the big ones, right? And part of it was just like, and I didn't answer properly. Like I didn't answer with confidence, right? And that was because I wasn't clear on what my idea of me being a producer meant. If you guys don't know, like when I'm a producer, I make a lot of music, but like and the fact that I was asked that, because nobody's ever asked me that before. What do you identify as, right? And this obviously can be taken further along in the conversation, because you can, that clarity will kind of help bring like essentially substance to your goals and the things that you want to do. It's easy to just be like, well, I'm a producer, and like, well, what does that mean? Like, what kind of production are you going to be doing, and why are you, right? And again, like, I can't really say much other than that. Like, I absolutely agree. Like, we've been through the ringer on this like multiple times already, and he's kind of already summed it up. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think, like I said, that clarity to me, like when I read that book, that really hit me, because at the time I didn't know, and I mean today I still not 100%, so it's something I'm trying to really hone in on to. And I would just recommend anyone who, like if you're just going day by day and you don't know what's going on, you're not on top of your goals, and you just don't know why you're happy, take some time, reflect, and try to figure out what actually makes you happy, what you want to be accomplishing in life, and establish that for yourself. Going back to that trusting yourself, I think is a major, it's kind of a major thing that we need to determine. Clarity and trusting yourself in terms of what you actually want to do, I think, are some of the things that you could implement into your New Year's resolutions. I think that would definitely help everyone out there. But
no, for sure,
this has definitely been a great chat, and this is why I have Danilo on this segment of the podcast, because we can literally talk for days.
Yeah. It's getting close. It feels like it almost, actually, we're getting close to a day's worth of talking almost.
Yeah. And I mean, the reason why I appreciate you is because, like, literally we can have these really honest thoughts. So just to kind of wrap things up, I think that, if you guys kind of had some insights come in from this podcast, let us know. You can always, obviously subscribe on YouTube, because hopefully we'll be able to edit this into a YouTube video, because we've got like several cameras and recordings going on right now.
Yep.
And you can always follow us, obviously, on the podcast. So it's From Within. This specific segment is called Coffee Chats. I didn't even mention it at the beginning, but that's fine. So it's Coffee Chats where my guy Danilo and I are going to be discussing some just kind of relevant topics of right now, and some honest thoughts, and two guys kind of just chatting it out and giving us our real feedback. So if you've gained anything from it, let us know. Obviously, if you have your own resolutions, your own goals for 2021, let us know. We'd love to hear your feedback on that. Give us some ideas as well as what we can want to accomplish as well. Because I know there's going to be a lot of creators that are going to be in here. So if you've got specific goals of, things that you want to accomplish, let us know, and we'll keep you accountable for it throughout the year. I just want to blast through just a couple of the goals that we have here at Adventures Within Media. So one of the goals is actually this podcast. So we want to get 12 episodes done this year. We're hoping to get more. So we're at least going to get one of these coffee chats going on every single month. And we have a few short films that we want to get out as well. So we've got a minimum of 3 short films we need to complete by 2021. So hopefully we'll get those done as well. But yeah, like I said, if you guys enjoyed it, let us know. Subscribe. You guys know the deal. We're on Instagram and Facebook as well. Any last thoughts, my guy, on New Year's resolutions? Any recommendations for these, for everyone listening, for all the 3 people who might listen to this? My mom, your dad, and my sister.
The only thing I can think of is, honestly, like, it's been a tough year. It's been an incredibly challenging year for everybody, like, if nothing else, give yourself a pat on the back for making it this far, I know that just because the clock turns from December to January doesn't necessarily mean everything's reset, but it also doesn't mean we can't change for the better, so that's the only thing I can say. Like, everybody just do your best going forward into 2021. We got this. And that's it. Yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And I mean, honestly, like, we still have so many more notes that I wanted to talk. We didn't even talk about your guy, but maybe we'll make a part 2 episode.
That's what future episodes are for, man.
Yeah. All right, cool. I'm gonna go make myself another coffee. I don't know about you.
All right, yeah, same here. Cheers.
All right, cool. Cheers. Catch you later. Cheers.